Hello and welcome to Pokemon Trading Card Game Online. In today's matchup we have a fighting type deck played by me with Primal Groudon, Donphan, Landorus, and against a metal deck, Metal Lynx, Bronzor, and various metal type attackers. That is a deck that I have a lot of experience with, actually. I made my own build of that deck recently, and I've had a lot of fun with it. I know the ins and outs of Metal Lynx very well, and fighting is something I'm a little bit less familiar with, but I did make a pretty solid list here. I have found that I'm not a huge fan of Primal Groudon. I feel like he slows this deck down a lot. Perhaps I need to forget about the Donphan line in this deck and go a little bit more heavy with the Groudon if I'm going to bother with Primal Groudon. But overall, this is a very strong deck, and it's very clear why Primal Groudon has become as popular as it has in recent weeks of play. So the first turn I have here, I have two Karinas in hand, which Karina is a very good card to have when you're setting up your Donphan deck, because it allows you to get a Pokemon card and an item card. Unfortunately, a lot of times during these early turns, especially when you're against a slower deck, you want to try to take advantage of more draw support, get more, just overall play more cards. But Karina's not an awful thing to have either. It's unfortunate I drew two of them, because that means I'll probably be using Karina 2 turns in a row when I'd rather just start drawing more cards. So the item cards I pick for the next one is going to be kind of important. So there's no real form of energy acceleration with a fighting deck. You just have to attach 1 energy per turn, as opposed to the Metal Lynx deck, which I'm against, which if they get set up well enough, they can be attaching up to 3, 4, I mean, in extreme cases, even 5 energy per turn, which is unheard of. So I have to make sure that every energy attachment counts, and I'm not just putting energy on the wrong Pokemon. And, you know, luckily, Donphan is a cheap attacker. It can put on some good damage with only 1 energy, which allows me to spend more time powering up my Groudon EX, as opposed to, you know, having to load up Donphan longer than I need to. So I'm having a really hard time deciding what I want with this Karina. I go ahead and get the computer search, since after doing the math I can Mega Evolve here, since it's not going to be too bad as far as losing the turn to attack, because I wasn't planning on attacking, and I'll take the computer search and just discard whatever the next card I draw is, along with the Hawlucha, and get something that can draw me more cards. My opponent seems to be being fairly consistent with his draw support line, but it unfortunately seems like he's having a little bit of a hard time getting as set up that you want to see. That Bronzor is still sitting on the bench right there, waiting to become a Bronzong, but he just can't seem to draw into the Bronzong, which is good for me, because once a Bronzong gets into play, he can start hitting with Full Metal Impact and start being able to set up the huge attacks like pretty consistently each turn, and that's something I want to try to avoid. So I'm very fortunate that he hasn't gotten a Bronzong into play. Even more fortunate that another Bronzor hasn't come down, because once 2 Bronzong get in play, the metal decks can really start going, and it's kind of hard to deal with after a while, since they can set up so many big attacks in such a short amount of time. I'm having a little bit of a dilemma trying to figure out how exactly I want to deal with this. So I figure, since he's not attacking, I'm just going to go ahead and start putting energy on my bench, as opposed to trying to actually attack this early on in the game, since he's essentially giving me the time to do that. But there's the first Full Metal Impact, and that down goes my Landorus, which isn't a huge deal. Landorus I found is a very useful card at very specific times, so it's worth running, but unless you're in one of those very specific times, I'm not super concerned if a Landorus goes down early on. So I'm going to play an N, and it looks like I'm fortunate enough to get the Fighting Stadium, which is going to help out a lot. That's what's nice about fighting decks, is that despite not being able to attach multiple energy to return, you can alter damage a lot. So with one energy, I managed to do 70 damage, which is a lot if you think about it. So I see the Seismitoad EX come down, and that's something I wasn't really expecting. Seismitoad is probably my least favorite card to come out in recent memory, just because once you start swinging with Quaking Punch, the game just gets really slow, and I just don't find it very fun to play. But there's no denying that it is a threat, so when a Seismitoad gets played down, you need to deal with it accordingly and not let yourself get locked out of a good amount of your deck, because once Quaking Punch starts locking you out of item cards, it just slows the entire game down, and you'll slowly start losing. It's very difficult for most decks, including this one, to deal with Seismitoad, so you need to... I can't stress enough that Seismitoad is a huge threat. So it looks like he's gonna go ahead and load up the Seismitoad with the double colorless energy, and there's the first Bronzong. So now he's gonna be able to start Metal Lynx. And Keldeo has a really strong card in Metal Lynx too, because they can put the Metal Pokemon that you need to load up back onto the bench. So Metal Lynx can start charging them up, because they need to be on the bench in order to attach that way. So I get hit with a Quaking Punch. Luckily I don't lose a prize card because of Robo Substitute. And this actually works out perfectly, because I'm going to be able to get my 4th energy attachment onto Primal Groudon, which is going to easily knock out Seismitoad EX in one shot. So losing one turn of item cards is not going to be a huge drawback. I'm going to play the 0-6 to get rid of the double colorless energy, just to force him to Metal Lynx more than he probably wants to onto that Dialga EX. So there I take my first 2 prize cards, and a big threat is gone in this form, that Seismitoad. And I can't imagine he's playing more than one Seismitoad in this deck, because it seems kind of silly to be running that sort of thing. Now, really unfortunate that a Headringer gets put down onto my Primal Groudon EX, which means that if I want to use the Gaia Volcano attack again, it will cost me 5 energy attachments onto Primal Groudon EX, which I'm barely okay with putting 4 on. So that's not so great. And then he hits me with Chrono Wind, which is going to mean my Primal Groudon can't actually attach this turn, whether or not I get the 5th energy on it or not. So I'm going to go ahead and just see what I draw off this Professor Sycamore. Get some good stuff, not amazing stuff. I would really like to get another Groudon, maybe try to set up another Groudon, but that might not be happening this game. And I think I'm going to have to do something very painful at this point, and that is probably retreating Primal Groudon and discarding all 4 energy that I have worked very hard on attaching. But considering I was able to take out a Seismitoad EX using that Primal Groudon in one shot, I'd say it was well worth it to do that move, because that Primal Groudon EX is the only thing in this deck that is probably going to be taking out other EX Pokemon in one shot, essentially. So I'm going to put down the Fighting Stadium again, because Gaia Volcano does discard your Fighting Stadium. And then I'm going to retreat into my fresh Donphan with the fighting, with a strong energy, just so he can start putting on some major damage onto this Dialga EX. And it's unfortunately not going to knock it out, but it's going to set it up for a knockout later in the game, and I should be able to figure out some sort of way to get rid of this Dialga EX. The unfortunate thing is that I'm now out of bench space, so setting up new Pokemon is not gonna happen very quickly. And then the Steel Shelter comes down, which shuts off special conditions on metal Pokemon, which fortunately for me, I'm not playing Hypnotoxic Laser or any moves that'll apply special conditions, but you know, it still kind of is counterproductive to me because I don't get to have my conditioning damage through Fighting Stadium, and I think I only play 3 Fighting Stadiums in this deck, so 2 of them have been discarded already. So the odds of me getting another Fighting Stadium is a little bit slim at this point. And then the Hypnotoxic Laser comes down and he can knock out my Lucario EX in one shot, taking an easy 2 prize cards on me, taking the lead there. So I'm just gonna go up with the Donphan. Donphan is a very simple choice to throw up after a knockout by your opponent because it's not going to get hurt after you use Spinning Turn, and you can go into a Robo Substitute and save yourself some time, because that's what makes this deck kind of strong to me, is that you can Spinning Turn and go into Robo Substitute and not let your opponent take prize cards, and while you're stalling that way you can load up Groudon EXs. But since he is swinging pretty hard with the Full Metal Impact at this point, I feel like it's better not to bench another Groudon EX and to just you know, go with what I have here. This is the set of Pokemon I'm going to be running with for the rest of the game, and this is actually a huge move here. I thought I had basically locked it up because I had knocked out his only Dialga EX on the field with energy on it, but as you can see here, he's going to be able to get energy onto that thing very quickly. There comes the special Steel Energy, and he's actually loading up Keldeo EX. That was probably the wrong move. I could see why he wanted to do it, just so he could have a safe attacker to take out my Robo Substitute. But you know, attaching that much energy to Keldeo in a deck that's not running Water Energy is got to be a little bit disappointing. That is a little bit of a desperation move, but it looks like it's going to pay off because now I'm in a situation where it's going to be very difficult for me to make sure I get the knockouts that I need. And here I'm just checking to see what's left in the deck. Not much, and I see that there's no there's only one Lysander. I believe I play 2, so the odds of me drawing that Lysander are kind of slim, so I'm going to have a hard time picking off that Dialga EX in order to take the knockout. So at this point, I think it's time to start sacrificing the smaller Pokemon. I have 3 Pokemon that only give up 1 prize card, and then I have the Primal Groudon, which will give up 2 prize cards. So it's tricky, but I need to be careful where I attach this strong energy because it needs to be on something that's gonna do a little bit of damage that's actually worth it. And attaching to Hawlucha was probably the wrong choice. However, with the amount of damage I need to do, honestly, I'm going to have to do multiple attacks no matter what. So it's not a huge loss to put it on Hawlucha when many would see it as a better opportunity to attach to one of the Donphans instead. So I'm going to use the Zero Stick, get rid of the Muscle Band, because there is, I believe, 180 or 170 damage left for Primal Groudon to take. So if I get rid of the Muscle Band, there's less likely that I will be knocked out by a Full Metal Impact. But as you can see right there, he gets the Muscle Band straight back onto Dialga. And here he brings out the small Cobalion. It's not going to be a threat at this point. I think he's just filling up his bench just to weed some cards out of his deck. I also saw that Mewtwo was part of this deck. That's an interesting choice to throw into this deck, but Mewtwo can be splashed into essentially any deck. It's always been one of the key features of the card. So, that Dialga's looking really scary. It's ready to go. It has 2 Bronzong helping it out to help get it ready to start full metal impacting the rest of my Pokemon. And there we are. I'm not dead in the water yet, but as soon as he gets something that can coax that Primal Groudon EX out of the bench position, I'm looking pretty bad. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm stretching my deck really thin here with that Professor Sycamore, but I really need to draw things that can add on to my damage output. And here's where I realized that putting that strong energy onto Hawlucha EX was probably not the best idea, because I could have done a lot more damage here with this this Donphan, but you know, since it's going to take multiple hits, like I said, not a huge loss. So I'm going to do 90 damage with Spinning Turn, which is really good, and that's not even with Fighting Stadium in play. So that's a good amount of damage, and unless he can get that Primal Groudon EX out of the bench position, I've essentially locked this game up, because I can go straight into my Donphan EX. Well, Donphan's not an EX, he's just strong enough to really be an EX sometimes, but essentially I'm just a Spinning Turn away from winning here. I did 90 damage last turn, and that leaves this Dialga set up for a perfect knockout. No damage waste here, and I will take the last 2 prize cards, and that is the game. So a very close game. Definitely some clutch decisions need to be made throughout that one, and very well played by my opponent as well. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it was insightful as well. I'll catch y'all later.